The cameras were already rolling when Kang Joon-Ho walked to the center of the stage. The ballroom was filled with the most powerful people in South Korea. Investors, politicians, media executives, women in gowns that cost more than most people earned in a year. Every single one of them had come to witness the same thing, the official announcement of the heir to the Kang Empire's engagement. The name of his future wife had been whispered in boardrooms and gossip columns for months. Everyone already knew who it would be. Park Seo-yeon, daughter of the second wealthiest family in Seoul. Polished, beautiful, and strategically perfect. The MC tapped the microphone. Cameras flashed. Joon-Ho straightened his jacket and looked out at the crowd. And then, he did something no one expected. He turned his head toward the back of the room, past the rows of seated guests, past the servers in white gloves, all the way to where a young black woman stood alone near the exit, holding a small notepad, clearly trying to be invisible. His voice came through the speakers clearly, calmly, without hesitation. "I choose her." Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. A reporter near the front lowered her camera. A board member dropped his champagne glass. Joon-Ho's mother, seated in the front row in a silk red dress, grabbed the arm of the chair so hard her knuckles changed color. The woman at the back of the room looked up from her notepad. Her name was Amara Okafor, and she looked just as shocked as everyone else. The room erupted. Questions flew. Cameras swung toward her. Security moved. Joon-Ho stepped off the stage, walked straight through the chaos, straight past his stunned family, straight to the back of the room, and stood in front of her. She stared at him. He looked at her like nothing else in that room existed. "I told you I would find you," he said quietly. Her eyes filled with tears. And the entire world watching through those cameras had absolutely no idea what had just happened. Neither did she, not fully. Not yet. But that moment had been 6 months in the making. And it started with a cup of coffee. Before we go further, can we just pause for 1 second? May God bless everyone watching this right now. May doors open for you that have been closed for too long. May the right people find you at exactly the right time. If this story already has you curious, do yourself a favor and subscribe to this channel right now, and drop a comment telling us where in the world you're watching from. We want to know. Now, let's go back to the beginning. Amara Okafor had been in Seoul for 2 years, and in 2 years, she had learned one thing very clearly. She was easy to overlook. She was not the kind of person people noticed when she walked into a room. Not because she wasn't remarkable, but because the world around her had decided, without asking, that she did not belong. At her university, she sat in the front row and still got passed over when professors called on students. In shops, assistants walked past her to attend to others who arrived after her. On the subway, people chose to stand rather than sit beside her. Small things. Daily things. The kind of things that, individually, seemed minor but collectively built a weight she carried every single day, without showing it. She was 26 years old. She had come from Lagos to Seoul on a partial scholarship to study international business. The scholarship covered her tuition. Everything else, her rent, her food, her transportation, she covered herself through 3 jobs. She tutored English in the mornings. She worked evening shifts at a cafe near campus. On weekends, she took freelance translation work. Her Korean was exceptional. Her French and Yoruba were native. Her English was already fluent. She had a gift for language that most people never noticed because they stopped looking at her before she had the chance to speak. Her small room in a shared apartment in Mapogu had one window that looked out over a narrow alley. She kept it clean. She kept her books organized. She had a photograph of her father taped above her desk, a smiling man with kind eyes and a worn leather briefcase. He had died 3 years ago. She still talked to his photograph sometimes, late at night when the weight of everything got too heavy. Her dream was clear. She wanted to build a company that connected African entrepreneurs with Asian markets. She had seen firsthand the way trade barriers and ignorance cut off entire economies from each other. She believed the bridge could be built. She was going to be the one to build it. But first, she had to survive. On the other side of Seoul, Kang Joon-Ho was surviving in a completely different way. He was 31 years old and had been the face of the Kang group since he was old enough to wear a suit. His grandfather had built the empire from nothing. His father had expanded it into a conglomerate that touched technology, real estate, fashion, and finance. Joon-Ho had been groomed to inherit all of it since childhood. He spoke 4 languages. He sat on 3 international boards. He had been photographed with presidents and prime ministers. He was also quietly and completely exhausted. Every relationship he had ever had was strategic. Every dinner had an agenda. Every smile directed at him came with a wand attached to it. He had stopped trusting people so gradually that he barely noticed when it happened. His inner circle was small, mostly consisting of his assistant, Min-soo, and a childhood friend who now lived in Canada. He did not date. His mother presented women to him the way one might present proposals, with data and reasoning. He smiled at them politely and felt nothing. The one thing that kept him sane was quiet. He liked early mornings before his schedule started. He liked sitting at a plain table with a plain cup of coffee, with no one watching him. He liked the brief moments when he was just a man, not an heir. Those moments were rare. The charity gala happened on a Thursday evening in October. The Kang Foundation hosted it annually, a high-profile event supporting education across Asia. Amara had been hired through a translation agency to assist with communication between international guests. It was good money for one night, and she needed it. She arrived in a simple black dress, her hair pulled back, her notepad ready. She kept to the edges of the room, doing her job quietly, translating for a group of French delegates near the bar, then moving on to assist a cluster of Japanese investors near the entrance. She did not look for attention. She did not eat the food laid out on the tables. She worked. Joon-Ho was across the room, anchored in place by a rotating cast of people who wanted something from him. A politician wanted a donation. A tech entrepreneur wanted a partnership. A socialite wanted a photograph. He smiled. He nodded. He looked for an exit. He found one briefly around 10 o'clock, slipping down a side corridor toward a quieter section of the venue. He needed 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes of being no one. He turned a corner too quickly. Amara turned the same corner from the opposite direction, moving fast, balancing a tray she had picked up by mistake from a server who had suddenly disappeared. Hot coffee. 3 full cups. And Joon-Ho's chest. The collision was immediate and total. Coffee soaked through his white shirt within seconds. The tray clattered to the floor. Amara stepped back, horror crossing her face, her notepad falling beside the tray, her eyes going wide as she looked up and realized, with a sinking stomach, exactly whose shirt she had just ruined. The corridor went very still. A nearby security guard took a step forward. Amara opened her mouth, already calculating the damage, already bracing for whatever came next. She had been in enough situations in this city to know that she would be the one who lost, regardless of who had turned the corner first. "I'm sorry," she said immediately, already bending to pick up the tray. "Leave it." She straightened slowly, cautiously. Joon-Ho was looking down at his ruined shirt. Then he looked at her. And then, unexpectedly, completely without warning, he laughed. Not a polite laugh. Not a dismissive laugh. A real one, quiet and genuine, like something had caught him off guard. "That," he said, "is the first unplanned thing that has happened to me in 4 months." She stared at him, uncertain whether she was about to be fired or arrested. "Are you hurt?" he asked. "Am I?" she blinked. "No." "Are you?" "My shirt is dead," he said. "The rest of me is fine." His security guard hovered behind him, awaiting instruction. Joon-Ho waved him off without looking. "You're working tonight?" he asked her. "Translation," she said, still watching him carefully. "French and Japanese delegates." He looked at her with the kind of attention people usually reserved for things they were trying to understand. "Do you want a coffee?" he asked. "To replace the ones you just donated to my clothing." She almost laughed. "Almost. I should get back." 5 minutes, he said. "There's a service area 2 doors down. Nobody will look for either of us there." She didn't know why she agreed. Maybe because he hadn't shouted. Maybe because he had laughed. Maybe because something in the way he asked made it sound like he was the one who needed the 5 minutes more than she did. They sat across from each other at a plain table with plain cups of coffee, and for the first time in a very long time, Kang Joon-Ho had a conversation that had nothing to do with business. She told him she was from Lagos. He told her he had never been to Nigeria. She said most people hadn't. He said that was their loss. She looked at him to check if he was being sarcastic. He wasn't. She went back to work. He went back to smiling at politicians. But something had shifted. He sent a message through the translation agency the next morning asking if Amara was available for a follow-up interpretation role at a smaller meeting the following week. The agency confirmed. Amara showed up, did her job, and was professional throughout. He spoke to her briefly afterward. She was polite, efficient, and clearly not impressed by him in the way most people were. It was disorienting in the best possible way. He created more reasons. A dinner for international delegates. A conference with West African partners. Each time, he made sure the request went through official channels, kept it professional, never put her in a position she hadn't agreed to. But each time they were in the same room, he found his way to 5 minutes with her. She was not naive. She noticed. One afternoon, after the third arranged meeting in as many weeks, she looked at him plainly and said, "You don't actually need a translator at these meetings. Your English is perfect and your team handles the rest." He didn't deny it. "I like talking to you," he said. "Why?" "Because you talk to me like I'm a person." She considered that for a moment. "Aren't you?" "Most people forget," he said. She didn't respond with warmth or flattery. She just nodded slowly, like she was filing the information away. That response told him more about her than any conversation they had managed so far. They started meeting outside of arranged work contexts. Coffee twice a week at a small place in Hongdae that no one from his world frequented. He arrived in plain clothes, no driver, no security, just himself. She arrived from whichever job she had just come from, sometimes with textbooks, sometimes still smelling faintly of the cafe where she worked evenings. They talked about everything, about her father and his business dreams, about his grandfather and the empire he hadn't chosen but had inherited, about loneliness, about ambition, about what it meant to be seen. He listened when she spoke. Not the performative listening of someone waiting to respond, actual listening where he remembered details from 2 meetings ago and asked about them now. That undid her, quietly. She told herself it was friendship. She was good at telling herself things. Joon-Ho knew exactly what it was. He also knew, with complete clarity, that his feelings were heading somewhere his family would not accept. He thought about that the way one thinks about a weather forecast, knowing the storm is coming, choosing not to move. The storm came faster than either of them expected. Someone photographed them at the coffee shop in Hongdae. One image. Her laughing at something he had said, him looking at her with an expression that any person with eyes could interpret correctly. It was posted on a celebrity gossip account with a caption that read, "Kang Joon-Ho and his mysterious companion. Who is she?" By the next morning, it had over 200,000 shares. By that evening, her name had been found, her university enrollment confirmed, her nationality turned into a headline, and the comment section of every major Korean entertainment platform had become a battleground. Some people were curious. Many were not kind. The cruelest ones went directly after her appearance, her background, her reasons for being in Seoul, and what they assumed her intentions were. She saw it because students at her university showed it to her. Not gently. She sat in her small room that night and read things about herself that she had not done and could not defend against because defending required a platform she did not have. She was quiet for a long time. Then she looked at the photograph of her father above her desk and pressed her lips together and did not cry. She called Joon-Ho the next morning. Before he could speak, she said, "You need to let this be the last time." "Amara." "I'm not angry at you," she said. "I know you didn't put that photo out. But I need you to understand what happens to me when this attention lands. You have a team and lawyers and a PR machine. I have a scholarship that can be rescinded if my university decides I'm creating problems. I have 3 jobs. I cannot afford to become a story." He was quiet. "Please," she said. "Leave it alone." She hung up before he could argue. What happened next, she did not expect. His mother arrived at her university. Madame Kang was 63 years old, impeccably dressed, and used to outcomes aligning with her intentions. She arranged a meeting through the International Student Affairs Office, officially, a philanthropy discussion about foreign student scholarships. Amara was called in without context. She understood the context the moment she walked into the room and saw who was sitting across the table. Madame Kang looked at her for a long time, without speaking. Then she said, "My son has a future that has been planned carefully for 31 years. I would like it to continue as planned." "I haven't interfered with anything," Amara said. "Not yet," Madame Kang said. "But feelings have a direction. I can see his." She paused. "I don't say this with hostility. I say it practically. You are clever enough to understand what I am telling you." "I already ended it," Amara said quietly. "Whatever it was, I ended it." Madame Kang studied her. For just a moment, something crossed the older woman's face that was not quite contempt and not quite respect. Then it vanished. "Good," she said, and left. Amara walked back to her classroom, sat down, opened her textbook, and stared at the same page for 45 minutes without reading a single word. She did not contact Joon-Ho again. He tried several times through different channels. She did not respond. She changed her freelance contact information. She told the translation agency she was unavailable for future corporate bookings. She erased the access points methodically, the way someone who has learned from experience closes doors before anyone can push through them. He stopped trying after 3 weeks. Not because he had given up, but because Min-soo, his assistant and one of the only people who actually told him the truth, said to him quietly one morning, "Sir, she has made a decision. Continuing to contact her is not respect. It is pressure." Joon-Ho sat with that for a long time. He went back to his life. Meetings. Events. His mother began reintroducing Park Seo-yeon into his schedule. Seo-yeon was pleasant and strategic and very practiced at this particular game. She smiled at him with full awareness of the goal and pursued it smoothly. He was not unkind to her. He was also not present, not really, and she knew it too, but she was patient. 3 months passed. Amara buried herself in work and study. She added a 4th job, weekend tutoring for a middle school in Yongsan. She started writing her business plan in earnest. She submitted papers. She stayed in. She was fine. She repeated this to herself regularly. One evening in January, cleaning out a box of her father's documents that had been shipped to her after his estate was settled, she found a folder she didn't recognize. Inside were photocopied documents in Korean, old ones from roughly 20 years ago. Her father had visited Seoul twice before she was born. She knew this vaguely. She had never known why. She translated the documents herself. It took her a long time. Not because the Korean was difficult, but because she kept having to stop and reread things to confirm she was understanding correctly. Her father, Amara Okafor, had been a financial consultant 22 years ago. He had traveled to Seoul to meet with the Kang Group during a period of serious financial crisis, a collapse in one of their overseas subsidiaries that had nearly destabilized the entire parent company. According to the documents, Amara had not only advised them but had personally arranged and guaranteed a bridge financing deal through contacts in West Africa and Europe that had bought the Kang Group 8 months of breathing room. Those 8 months had been enough. The company had restructured, recovered, and gone on to become the empire it was today. His contribution had never been publicly acknowledged. No record of it existed in any official Kang Group documentation. He had returned to Lagos and lived the rest of his life as a mid-level consultant who sometimes told his daughter stories about the time he had helped someone and not been thanked for it. She sat on the floor with those papers in her lap and felt something she could not immediately name. It sat somewhere between grief and fury and something else, something that felt almost like the ground shifting beneath a house built on a lie. She called the one person she thought might be able to verify what she was reading. It took 2 phone calls to reach Min-soo. She did not ask to speak to Joon-Ho. She asked Min-soo if he could confirm the authenticity of certain documents without escalating the matter. He said he would see what he could do. He called back in 48 hours. His voice was careful. "Miss Okafor, the documents appear to be genuine. I would strongly recommend you not share them publicly until you have spoken to someone with proper legal standing." "Is there a record of my father anywhere in Kang Group's official history?" she asked. A pause. No, Min-soo said. She thanked him and ended the call. Joon-ho knew within the hour. Min-soo told him immediately, as he should have. Joon-ho read the copied documents Min-soo scanned and sent to him. He read them twice. Then he called his grandfather's former secretary, who was 80 years old and still alive and who, when presented with the documents, confirmed everything. Said she had always thought it was wrong. Said she had been a junior employee then and hadn't known what to do. Said she was glad someone had finally found the papers. Joon-ho went to his father's study that evening and laid the documents on the desk. His father looked at them for a very long time. We were in crisis, his father said finally. Your grandfather made decisions under pressure. He erased a man from the record, Joon-ho said. A man whose daughter grew up without the credit her father was owed, while we built everything on top of his work. His father had no answer for that. His mother did. This does not change the present situation, she said, when Joon-ho brought it to her the next morning. Whatever debt may or may not exist. It exists, Joon-ho said. The documents are verified, can be addressed through a private financial settlement. This does not need to become a public matter. What you're describing, Joon-ho said slowly, is paying her to stay quiet. I am describing a responsible resolution. You mean one that keeps her name out of the story.
Joon-ho.
The succession ceremony is in 3 weeks, he said. He looked at his mother steadily. I will handle this my way. She looked at him with the expression she had worn since he was a child when she recognized that she had lost the argument, but was not yet ready to accept it. If you destroy this family's public standing over a woman who has already chosen to leave. She left, he said, because you came to her university and told her to. His mother said nothing. I know you did, he said. Min-soo knows everything. Everyone who is loyal to me knows everything. He stood. 3 weeks. The days before the ceremony moved fast. Joon-ho's legal team began preparing the documentation to formally enter Amara Okafor's contribution into the official Kang Group historical record. Board members who had been present during the original crisis were contacted. 2 of them refused to cooperate. 1 agreed. The grandfather's secretary recorded a formal testimony. Park Seo-yeon arrived at his office unannounced 4 days before the ceremony. She sat across from him and said, with the cool clarity of someone who had been playing this game far longer than it appeared, I know you're not going to choose me. I've known for a while. He looked at her with something close to respect. You deserve someone who chooses you, he said. I know that, she said. I'm telling you because I want to make sure you're not walking into that ceremony with a plan that collapses in the room. If you're going to do this, do it properly. Don't give them an opening. She stood. She'd better be worth it. She is, he said. Amara did not know what he was planning. He had not contacted her since the document surfaced. She had been contacted only by Min-soo, who had told her, professionally, carefully, that she might want to be present at the ceremony for reasons related to her father's legacy. She had thought about not going. She had thought about it for a long time, standing in her small room, looking at her father's photograph. She went. She wore a simple dark blue dress. She arrived without an invitation, giving her name at the entrance, which Min-soo had apparently arranged, because the security team let her through without a word. She stood at the back. She held her notepad, old habit, something to hold on to. The room was everything the coffee shop in Hongdae was not. Every important name in Korean business and media was present. Cameras from 4 networks. Investors from 3 continents. The Kang family seated in the front row, Madame Kang in red silk, Joon-ho's father pale and still, the board members in a line behind them. Joon-ho walked to the stage. He looked calm. He always looked calm. But Amara, who had spent enough hours in quiet rooms with him to know the difference, could see the steadiness in him that came not from performance, but from decision. He had decided. Whatever happened next, he had decided. He spoke for several minutes about the Kang Group's history, about his grandfather, about the values the company had been built on. The room was attentive, expectant, waiting for the part everyone had come to hear, the announcement of the heir's engagement. It was the part that would seal the business alliance and signal the next generation of the empire. Then Joon-ho said, "Before I speak about my future, I need to correct our past. The room shifted. He had a screen behind him. Documents appeared on it. Official, verified, time-stamped. His legal team had ensured they were irrefutable. He walked through the events of 22 years ago. The crisis. The foreign consultant who had made the difference. The deliberate erasure of the man's contribution from the record. A board member stood up. This is not the time or place. Sit down, Joon-Ho said without looking at him. His voice was quiet. It was the kind of quiet that cleared rooms. The man sat. He named Amara Okafor. Said the name clearly, twice. Said he was the man whose work had preserved the Kang Empire during its most vulnerable period, and whose name had been stripped from the history his daughter grew up reading. Said that the company would be formally acknowledging this contribution and establishing a record that could never be removed again. Then, he looked toward the back of the room. He found her immediately. I would rather lose this empire than continue building it on a lie, he said. And I would rather lose this empire than lose the woman I love. The room was completely silent. He stepped off the stage. He walked through the crowd, past the cameras, past his mother's white face, past the board members, past the journalists who were already live on their phones. He walked to the back of the room. He stood in front of Amara. She was looking at him the way she had looked at those translated documents, trying to confirm that she was understanding correctly, trying to make sure this was real. I told you I would find you, he said. You found me, she said. Her voice was not steady. I'm sorry about your father, he said. I'm sorry it took this long. She pressed her lips together, nodded once. And I'm sorry, he said, that you spent all this time in a city that kept looking past you. You should have been seen from the beginning. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she said, very quietly, you are going to lose a great deal over this. I know, he said. I've done the calculation. And the answer keeps coming out the same. She took a breath. Behind them, cameras were rolling, voices were rising, and the most powerful family in Korean business was watching their carefully constructed future pivot on this moment. Amara looked at Joon-Ho, and she let herself, finally, be seen. In the months that followed, the world had many opinions about what had happened in that room. Some were negative. The business press questioned the stability of the heir's judgment. Social media was divided, as it always is, as it always will be. 2 board members resigned. A tabloid ran a story with a headline that would have been devastating a year ago and now merely inconvenienced her, because Amara Okafor had stopped needing the world's approval to know who she was. The Kang Group formally entered Amara Okafor's name into its official records. A scholarship was established in his name for African students in Seoul. Amara was not involved in designing it. She had her own work to do. She launched her company in April. A trade consultancy connecting African entrepreneurs with Asian markets, built exactly the way she had planned it, on exactly the foundation she had been building quietly for years. The launch drew coverage. Not because of Joon-Ho, though he was there, standing to the side where he belonged on that day, watching with an expression that looked like pride wearing good clothes. She spoke at the launch for 20 minutes. She talked about her father, about the years he had worked without acknowledgement, about what it meant to do good work in a world that wasn't always paying attention. She looked out at the audience and said, if you are somewhere right now being overlooked, I need you to hear this. Being unseen does not make you invisible. It makes them blind. Keep building anyway. Later, walking through the streets of Seoul with Joon-Ho on a quiet evening, he said to her, the world ignored you because they judged what they could see. I chose you because I took the time to see who you actually were. She looked at him sideways. That's a very nice thing to say. It's a true thing, he said. It is, she agreed. But for the record, I also chose you. That part gets left out of the story. He smiled. The real one. The one she had first seen in a side corridor over a ruined shirt and spilled coffee. Then let's make sure the story gets told correctly, he said. And that is the story. If you made it to the end of this video, you are exactly the kind of viewer this channel was made for. Please subscribe right now if you haven't already, and leave a comment below telling us where you're watching from, whether it's Lagos or London, Seoul or Sao Paulo, or anywhere in between. Like this video if Amara's story moved you. And may every person watching this who has ever been overlooked find themselves, very soon, in a room where the right person turns and says, "I see you."